Well, welcome everyone to the virtual gala. This is our second virtual gala. We are very excited and very honored to be here with you, and so glad that you're here. Hope you enjoy the food. You could be in your pajamas having Kraft macaroni and cheese right out of the pot. But next year we're going to be in a fancy room with really good food. So thank you all for coming. We have a wonderful evening in store for you.
Thank you so much. And in all honesty, we're also hoping this is our last virtual gala. It would be so nice to see you all again in person next year, next June in DC again, and then hopefully later in the year as well for our 10-year remembrance. But we wanted to thank you everyone for coming. And I think we have some special thank yous to give to everyone before we get started with tonight's program.
Yeah, and we'd like to thank our honorees for the evening, Senator Hassan and Representative Upton.
And we'll be hearing from both of them later. We also want to do a lot of thank you to all of our generous sponsors, because it's with your support, we are able to do this life-saving work and make this not only tonight possible, but all of the other daily activities that we do every day to make a difference in the lives of youth across the country and save so many lives. So we're grateful that there are so many returning sponsors, that many of you have been with us since our very first gala, and we so appreciate your ongoing support and commitment to our mission and to the kids and to Sandy Hook Promise. And it's also nice to see so many new supporters and donors coming on as well. We truly appreciate your support, especially during these difficult times.
Yeah, thank you for sticking it out with us for so many years, and for our new ones. We really appreciate your help. As Nicole said, we cannot do this work without you and your amazing support. So it does mean everything to us, and it makes it all possible. So thank you.
Truly, and it's something that it's lovely to see this list continue to grow year on year. That's why we've got a few slides to go through to just give special thanks to everyone, because we want to ensure that all of our sponsors are absolutely acknowledged. In addition to everyone who is watching today, we really appreciate you as well. And I'd also like to give a quick shout out to our board who's out there watching as well. And especially co-founder Bill Sherlock, whose wife Mary was the school psychologist at Sandy Hook School and was killed that day. Usually he speaks with us. He's not doing that today because we have such a tight agenda, but wanted to certainly thank the board for helping to govern all of the work we do, and to Bill as the chairman of our board for his ongoing support and commitment. So we also want to thank some special guests that you're going to be hearing from later. Ariana and Drew, Ariana from Georgia and Drew from Florida. They are part of our National Youth Advisory Board. Ariana's been with us for a couple of years now, and I think some of you may have met her before, and we're super excited to hear more from them in terms of the students' experience for what this past year has been and what they hope for the next year.
And we'd also like to thank our representatives from the educational community. My wife, Jackie, is a career educator, so it's near and dear to my heart as well. So joining us for tonight's discussion will be Karen Fairley from North Carolina and David Morgan from Ohio. Thank you for both of you for being with us.
And of course, a special thanks as always to our honorary co-chairs, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, Senator Richard Blumenthal, Senator Chris Murphy, and Representative Johanna Hayes. I know Senator Schumer cannot be with us tonight, but Senator Blumenthal, perhaps you'd like to kick us off by saying hello to everyone.
Thank you so much, Nicole. I am really excited and honored to be with you. As always, even though it's virtual, it's no less powerful and meaningful. And first of all, my thanks to you and Mark, such great friends and role models for all of us about, leading the nation as you've done in so many areas, but never more important than during this pandemic, when isolation and anxiety and stress have hit our young people, children, students in school or out of school. And Sandy Hook's Promise's mission has been more important than ever. So I want to do a great big personal thanks, and I wish it weren't virtual, because I would be springing through the internet to hug you. And exactly. But I also want to thank Maggie Hassan, a great colleague, courageous, strong, indomitable, and Fred Upton, thanks for his leadership and courage as well. To all of your staff, to everyone around the country who has taken Sandy Hook Promise to heart and adopted its vision of making schools safer and stopping gun violence. And so I'm going to continue to work on this issue with my great colleague, Chris Murphy. I think, we're closer than ever to meaningful action, particularly where the kinds of work you do is directly tied to common sense steps, whether it is safe storage of weapons or red flag emergency risk orders that separate people from guns if they're dangerous to themselves, or other kinds of steps, background checks. We know we have formed a political movement that eventually will prevail, and that our opponents, particularly NRA, is on the wane. So you have led in the schools. You've had such a practical, real life impact. I can't thank you enough. And I'll just finish by thanking all of those sponsors who have responded to all of our phone calls and entreaties. I'll tell you what's great is when I call now, I don't have to persuade anyone. They're sold. That's why they keep coming back, because they know how much you accomplished. And the new ones, I think, are impressed by the growing importance of your work. So thanks so much to Sandy Hook Promise, to Mark Barton and Nicole Hockley, and everyone who is part of this great cause. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Senator Blumenthal. And we are looking forward to those hugs as well, for sure. Senator Murphy, our second huggable senator, would love to hear from you right now as well.
Well, listen, let me just piggyback on Dick's thanks to both of you personally, to Bill Sherlock, to the entire Sandy Hook Promise team. Your work is more essential now than ever. I think back to 5 years ago. 5 years ago, yesterday was the Sandy Hook Promise Gala. It was also the night when Senator Blumenthal and I were on the floor for 15 hours demanding votes on 2 background check measures. And I think about how far we've come since that day. I just came from bipartisan negotiations in the Senate on a background checks proposal that we are hopeful to get to the Senate floor sometime this summer. Back then, we were lucky to find one Republican who would negotiate with us on background checks. Today, there are potentially multiple partners. Senator Blumenthal has been doing incredible work on a bipartisan red flag proposal. We don't know whether we'll be able to get these to that 60 vote finish line, but the only reason that we're close is because Sandy Hook Promise has made a commitment to bringing everyone into this conversation, whether it's on firearms laws or on interventions in schools. This is something that can sort of cross all political boundaries. And that's what I really love about this organization. So I'm just here to say thank you for what you've done to power us forward, what you've done to save incalculable numbers of lives across the country with the millions of kids that you reach with your programming, and to add my thanks to all of those on the call who have stepped up in big and small ways to help support your work, the work that you're doing out in schools and communities all across the country. As I said, it's saving lives and changing lives. So I'm grateful to be with you, even if virtually this evening.
Thank you. And for our wonderful Representative Hayes, we'd love to hear from you now as well, please.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me and for doing this yet again another year. It really is a testament to your resilience and your resistance. The fact that you had to take a little bit of extra time to go through the slides because you actually have more supporters joining in a virtual gala really just speaks volumes about the work that you're doing. I think for me, I am most heartened by the fact that your work doesn't stop at just gun violence. It is really the whole child. It is creating a healthy school climate and making sure that we are addressing mental health and trauma. And at a time coming out of a pandemic when we're going to see that more than ever, when people need to be trained on the signs and know how to intervene, your work could not be more critical. So I just really appreciate that you have a multi-pronged approach to get to the core of the problem, you know, not just about the physical firearms and what that means, but really helping kids to understand, you know, how to recognize the signs, how to share with adults, helping adults to understand how to intervene. I think that from my role, my real life as a classroom teacher, I think that to me is invaluable, because so often and in so many instances, people feel helpless because they don't know what to do. Even and there's always this moment of reckoning when you're thinking, could I have done more? So I think that your work with educators, with families, with children is just so important. And I think it's going to be even more important moving forward. So I just am honored to partner with you in this work and to really help to elevate your message, to be able to weigh in as your voice in Congress, and I guess just share you with the rest of the country, because the work you do is to be commended. So many of my colleagues on the House side really just reference Sandy Hook and the Sandy Hook Promise in all of our legislative work in this area. So just thank you for leading the way, for not giving up, for showing us, you know, showing us how we can be better, and reminding us of our obligation and our responsibility to legislate in a way that is responsible and decent. So thanks for doing this, and it's good to see you guys. I can't wait till we do this again in person.
Thank you, Representative. And thank you to all of our wonderful delegation here in Connecticut. They've just been by our side since day one and continue to be. And we're so fortunate for your leadership, for your support, and for your partnership. And we look forward to continuing that and to do great work as we move forward. And that mission is purely, quite honestly, to end school shootings and to create a culture change that prevents violence and other harmful acts that hurt children before we have to worry about the legislation that prevents people from getting to the access. So let's get upstream of this and prevent this from happening before it actually does happen. And we can do that through our proven, evidence-informed Know the Signs prevention programs. We educate and empower youth and adults to recognize, to intervene, and to get help for individuals who may be socially isolated or at risk of hurting themselves or hurting others.
Absolutely. And those programs, thanks to support from everyone here and so many more, since 2015, we have had over 14 million youth and adults participate in our programs in over 14,000 schools as well. We drafted and legislated and helped pass the Stop School Violence Act in 2018, which has enabled at least 440,000 more youth and educators to learn how to know the signs and intervene and get help. And even though this year was challenging on a lot of different levels, we still managed to train over 500,000 students this year alone through virtual programs where we beamed our trainers directly into classrooms or home environments to continue that message around start with hello, to continue that message around how to be an upstander and say something, and to continue to learn about how to prevent suicide and recognize the signs of someone who needs help. All of these programs we continue to deliver at no cost, and that's thanks to you, because without your funding and support, we wouldn't be able to deliver these to the scale that we have and continue to do each year. But there's a lot more that's important than just reaching the kids. It's knowing that you're having an impact. And we know that these programs are having an impact. Our crisis center in Miami has had more life safety tips percentage-wise this year than in previous years. The youth out there need us. There is a mental health crisis going on right now that will last beyond COVID. And we still don't know the long-term effects on their mental health because of COVID. But some of the daily feedback we get from schools around bullying or cyberbullying or substance abuse issues or sexual abuse issues or dating violence, those are all meaningful. But then it's the tips as well that we look at on the system, that I look at on the system and hear about, that are heartbreaking, but also knowing that it's making a difference. For example, in terms of suicide, we had a high schooler call in not too long ago because his friend was habitually cutting themselves. which then escalated into talk of suicide and access to medication, lethal medication at doses that would kill this person and have him take his life. Friend took action, called our crisis center. The school teams and dispatch teams were discharged. The first responders conducted a welfare check and determined that the suicide threat was real and intervened to get that student help. Just because schools haven't all been in session across the country this year doesn't mean that school violence and school shootings still haven't been threatened to take place or take place. This past year over social media, a 10th grader, and it just breaks my heart how young this is happening, a 10th grader was threatening their classmates that they were going to shoot up the school and had a specific date, plan of attack, a list of students they were planning on targeting. Kids called into our crisis center. They sent pictures of the threats that were being made on social media. Our crisis center immediately got into action, contacted the school teams, contacted local law enforcement, found the student, went to their home and discovered that there was means and access to determine that the threat was real enough that an action needed to be taken, and that student was taken into custody so that they were not able to deliver on their plans. At the same time, and Representative Hayes mentioned, there's a lot that we've done to help with mental health this year. And this is an area that we've really been focused a lot as an organization this year and for the coming school year as well. There's a lot of kids out there who are, when you think about how anxious we adults are through COVID, the kids are feeling our anxiety as well as their own because of the isolation, because of the economic uncertainty that their parents may be going through. We've had kids calling in first person saying, I feel like I'm a burden to my parents. They'd be better off without me. Or school was my safe place and now I'm being abused at home. Or a high school student that called in not too long ago, couldn't focus on their schoolwork, was feeling paralyzed by overwhelming sadness. They had tried to talk to a trusted adult and couldn't get a response. So they called us instead. And our counselor listened to them, helped keep them safe. And then in the background, while working with that reporter, also collaborating with the school team to get that kid the mental health that they needed. And that's where this power really comes from. It's about the students. It's about the students looking out for each other. It's about the students reporting about other kids that need help. And it's about the students taking action. And that's why we're so proud as well of our Save Promise clubs. There's over 3,300 of them now across the country and continuing to grow. And I believe Mark's going to introduce some members from our youth advisory board who help advise all of our youth engagement and empowerment activity across all of those clubs.
That's right, Nicole. And the Youth Advisory Board and our Save Promise clubs are a force to be reckoned with, and such a empowered value add and a model for students across the country. But you know, you were talking about the mental health issues and the challenges that our students are facing in normal times, and unfortunately, we're seeing a huge uptick where anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation, all of that has been exacerbated by the results of the pandemic and the quarantine. Many students are not in the safest place when they're at home. Oftentimes they're home in a domestic violence situation, or they're trapped at home with their abusers, coupled with this online environment that they've been forced to be existing in, and now re-emerging into face-to-face interactions and all the social pressures that come with that. Our crisis center has been observing an uptick in a host of troubling situations that students find themselves in. So we created a public service announcement to speak to that and to illustrate some of the mental health challenges and anxieties that students are facing. So we'd like to share that with you now, and then excited to introduce you to a member from our Youth Advisory Board.
X plus 1.
Many children and teenagers are feeling isolated this year.
Leave me alone!
Authorities say she endured nearly a year of cyberbullying.
Supposedly he said something about it last night and no one took it serious.
It's a horrible moment we're living through. It really is awful. Frightening headlines across America.
You know, you're going down the rabbit hole. More than half of all kids surveyed reported thoughts of suicide.
Attacked another 14-year-old.
The last stop on this train. County 911.
So that gives you a little bit of a window, and hopefully we can share. I mean, folks are not always aware of what our kids are dealing with. So we wanted to share that. So now I'd like to introduce you to one of our amazing Youth Advisory Board members. Drew is going to share some of his perspectives. Drew Lanzaw from our new National Youth Advisory Board is going to share some perspectives from the year.
Hello, everyone. I'm Drew Lanzaw, a senior at Cutler Bay Senior High in Miami, Florida, and I am a member of the National Youth Advisory Board. So as a student during the pandemic, the PSA is an unfortunately accurate view into the current state of student mental health. Throughout this past year and a half online, I've watched several of our school's best students completely shut down as they take hit after hit. Many of us had a slew of responsibilities before the pandemic, but as soon as online schooling started, we had all of the responsibilities with none of the breaks or the support. Many students that I know have been so overwhelmed that they've been forced to drop more challenging courses and even transfer schools, as online schooling has made it feel as if they have no effective way to handle the stress. Thanks to the vaccine, we will return to school in person this fall, but a cure to the pandemic does not mean a cure to mental health. Although it's been exacerbated by online schooling, these types of breakdowns and anxiety attacks have been something common in student life for as long as I can remember. However, thanks to the work of Sandy Hook Promise and the support of our elected officials, like those of you gathered here tonight, prioritizing students and their health, there appears to be a glowing light at the end of the tunnel that is student mental health. Thank you so much for your support, everyone. Students around the nation will be safer thanks to your efforts. And now I'm going to throw it back to Mark. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Drew. And we're sorry that Ariana could not be with us. She was experiencing some technical difficulties, but Drew and Ariana represent the amazing collective of National Youth Advisory Board members, and they are such a value to this organization and to their peers, and are truly a model for students across the country. So, as we mentioned earlier, we're very excited to be honoring Senator Maggie, Hassan, and Representative Fred Upton at our gala this year for their exemplary work. Senator Hassan has been the lead sponsor for the Stand Up Act in the Senate and an unwavering champion of gun violence prevention. Suicide rates are rising among our youth, and the senator has shared our commitment to passing policy to ensure more kids across the country can get the training and the help they need. And it's more critical now than ever. Senator Hassan is aware of that and is also an original co-sponsor of universal background checks and a supporter of the Stop School Violence Act, and has worked passionately on Homeland Security and Government Affairs Committee for evidence-based school safety policies. So we thank Senator Hassan for her enduring commitment to youth suicide prevention and mental health, and working with us to make that change. Senator Hassan, would you like to share a few words with us?
Well, sure. Thank you so much, Mark, for that great summary. Thank you for the work that you and Sandy Hook Promise do. To Congressman Upton, one of my lead co-sponsor on the other side of the Capitol and the other side of the aisle, I am really honored to be accepting this recognition alongside of you. The work that Sandy Hook Promise does is incredible work. It really is focused on our kids and on protecting them from gun violence. And we all are here tonight because we recognize there is still so much more we have to do to stop gun violence and to help our children stay safe. This crisis has invaded every aspect of American life, in schools, in churches, concerts, nightclubs, movie theaters, and our homes and our workplaces. It is unconscionable that our kids are growing up feeling unsafe in their schools and in their communities. But it's also unconscionable that so many public officials are failing to take action. It's really Congress's responsibility to move forward and to finally act. That's something I'll continue to push for. We're going to push to ensure that we do more to provide young people with mental health support and resources, and that's one of the reasons that the Stand Up Act is so important. We need to enact common sense gun safety laws, including improving our background check system, closing loopholes that allow domestic abusers to legally obtain weapons, and helping states implement the so-called red flag laws. So those are some of the things I'm focused on. Tonight's focus on really preventing violence in the first place by helping so many of our students with their own feelings and internal struggles continues to be something I want to work on with all of you. It's something I'm hearing directly about from constituents. So thank you again to Sandy Hook Promise for this honor, for all that you do, and just a thank you as well to Congressman Upton for putting children and communities always before politics. I deeply, deeply appreciate being your colleague.
Thank you, Senator Hassan, and we are looking forward to continuing our work with you. And thank you again for your leadership. And it's truly our pleasure to honor you. And it is also such a pleasure to be honoring Representative Fred Upton, who is a longtime champion for mental health and violence prevention, a co-lead of funding for the Stop School Violence Act, and a supporter of the Stand Up Act, and a champion for Sandy Hook Promise, who has taken many important votes very dear to our hearts in the House of Representatives. The Stop School Violence Act provides states and schools the resources that they need to implement evidence-based violence and suicide prevention programs like our Know the Signs programs. So we thank you, Representative Upton. We thank you for your commitment to keeping kids safe from violence. We'd love to hear a few words, Representative Upton, if you can share something with us now. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And I really do appreciate your leadership, the organization's leadership, and my friendship with Maggie. I've known her a long time, and she's done wonderful things. And yes, I'm one of those that makes it bipartisan because I'm a Republican and I really care about this. And really what stemmed I supported the Brady bill before it was popular. I saw it fail a couple of times with background checks. But I tell you, I served on the Education Committee in my early days in the Congress. And we had the first Columbine shooting survivors come. There was not a dry eye in the place. I met with you, Mark, and other Sandy Hook, I'll call them victims, the survivors somehow, but also the Parkland kids. And I was one that voted, one of the 11 Republicans to strip my Republican colleague, MTG, from the Education Committee after I saw her video of her going after a Parkland survivor, and that she told him with a gun in her purse. Kids can't learn when they're unsafe. And even though I've been lucky not to see a Parkland or a Sandy Hook or a Columbine in my district, we've come this close from a number of those things there. And we need to use every tool in the toolbox: mental health, suicide prevention, bullying, all those things, to really try and make a difference so that what happened in those communities doesn't happen someplace else. We're all frightened to death that it will. And that's why we have to redouble our efforts. And that's why this effort, your effort, is so important, to continue to use that terrible, awful experience so that it doesn't repeat itself ever again. I'm one that visits a school, or did visit a school until COVID, literally every single week. I was at Kalamazoo High School the day before Parkland, and I was there the next day as well, just to talk to the kids with law enforcement. I brought a colleague, a Democratic colleague with me, Debbie Bingle, who's been, I have worked on a lot of things together. I joined with Ted Deutsch, who was the congressman from Parkland, on a red flag bill, and made it bipartisan. And this again, this has been legislation that has been in some states for years. There's no reason why we can't see a national bill like that, designed really to help people that need the help so they don't commit these things. So thank you. I might say that we're expecting a vote in the next maybe 5 or 10 minutes. So I may not be able to stay with you for the whole program, but thank you for all you do, because we have your back. We sure do. God bless you all.
Thank you so much, Congressman Upton and Senator Hassan. And we have your back too. Please know that. We're so proud to be working with you and partnering with you every day. At this moment, I'm also going to ask a couple of some representatives from schools that we work with to join a conversation with the congressman and the senator to really discuss what's going on out there and how can we continue to make changes at a legislative level, but also within a school district. So first, I'm going to introduce Karen Fairley. Karen is the executive director of the North Carolina Center for Safer Schools. She's been partnering with Sandy Hook Promise to bring our Say Something anonymous reporting system to all the high schools across the state of North Carolina, our second statewide partnership. And I'm thrilled that she is joining us today because she has an amazing perspective as to how to make this work across the state. Also joining us is David Morgan. He's the head of risk management at Stark County Educational Service Center in the greater Cleveland, Ohio area. And schools in Stark County have done all of the Sandy Hook Promise programs, including Start with Hello, the Say Something anonymous reporting system, and have student leaders in Save Promise Club. So welcome, David and Karen. And I'm going to start off with you, Senator Hassan, if I may. How, with everything that's going on at the moment, and I appreciate there is a lot on the table at the moment, how do you think that the federal government can better support school personnel and students to improve their mental health funding and services and help prevent suicide?
Well, look, Nicole, thanks so much for the question. And I will just add to what Congressman Upton mentioned too. I'm the daughter of educators and the mother of an educator. And I spend a lot of time in schools, and I am hearing directly, most recently I was in a small school in New Hampshire with kids from like first grade through high school, along with their teachers and administrators. And I was tiptoeing around the idea of like the whole concept of mental health. How are you feeling? Because this has been a school where a lot of the kids have been able to be in person for a lot of the year. The kids raised it. They were having none of my tiptoeing around the subject. They said, we need help. We need help with mental health. We have friends who are depressed and isolated and talk about hurting themselves. And we really need help. And so that's where, whether it's on Homeland Security or in our Help Committee, I've been really focused on what tools do we need to get in the hands of our teachers, our school nurses, our parents, and our kids, and how can kids be equipped to know how to talk to a trusted adult, and if that conversation doesn't work, move to somebody else. How do they know what to look for and how to listen, absorb, and then get resources? So that's number one. The other thing we obviously need to do is make sure that we are investing in resources so that more and more people can get the kind of training from our Department of Health and Human Services at the federal level. We can get grant money to schools. We can have coordinators who help build age-appropriate curriculum in the classes, something that we've seen SAMHSA fund in some of our schools, and really spread that throughout our school system and integrate it in our healthcare system too. Last thing I'll say is our pediatricians and frontline healthcare workers really need training and help here too, so that they can talk with kids along with parents and coordinate with schools.
I couldn't agree more. And I'd love to hear in a moment from our schools as to what they also think, if there's any additional ideas that they have that the federal government could do to help support. But Congressman Upton, you mentioned that you're a champion for bipartisanship. I love your relationship with Senator Hassan. I know that our honorary co-chairs are also champions of bipartisanship. And as you know, Sandy Hook Promise is all about, well, kid partisanship for us, but definitely nonpartisanship and bipartisanship. What, in terms of school safety and school violence and mental health, how can we ensure that this remains always a bipartisan issue? And what do you think are the best arguments that we could use to help get more members of Congress involved in this work?
Well, a couple things. First of all, Maggie said it. She was right on target in terms of we need to make sure that we have the right resources, particularly for our teachers. I got a brother and a sister that are former teachers. They're both retired. My mom was a teacher. I've got a wonderful university in my side of the state, Western Michigan University, which with a couple other universities turns out more teachers than just about any couple of universities across the country. So that needs to be part of the curriculum. But we need to keep it bipartisan. So I'm a member of the Problem Solvers Caucus. 58 members, equally divided, Republican and Democrat. And we've had some real successes. We're working real hard right now on a big issue called infrastructure, which will dominate that bunch of the summer. But I'm prepared, and we got people on the education committee now. We got to work together. This is not a Republican or Democratic issue. When we watch the news and we see about some tragic event that happens, whether it be in Aurora, Colorado, or Columbine, Parkland, or Sandy Hook, or Chicago, damn, we all bleed when the This is not just a Democrat issue or an urban issue. This happens in rural areas too. I can tell you the stories. I have about 100 school districts in my district, and it's happened in some pretty rural communities. I mean, my brother's the athletic director at a high school. They had 60 doors at the high school. Pretty hard to confront it, to try and figure out how those kids are going to be safe, and athletic events and all those different things. We need to be on top of it. So new designs for our schools, and that's happening, but more resources, particularly when you see someone early that's bullying, that needs to stop. And we make sure that the resources are there for all of our school districts, as that is a leading contender for the violence that we see. But, it's going to take all of us pulling together. We have divided government, like it or not. Now, we got to work together to get things done. I'm certainly prepared to do that, and I'm sure that most, if not all, of the problem solvers members in our caucus are on that same page.
And if I could just jump in, I know we want to go to the school administrators. I'd add two things. One is that this week, members of both parties in the Senate independently raised the newest CDC report that said there's been, I think, a 51% increase for adolescent young women presenting in emergency rooms with suicidal ideation. And that was a Democratic concern, a Republican concern. Most of us in Congress and Senate are parents or grandparents or both. Everybody focused on that in ways, we all have somewhat different perspectives, obviously. The other thing I will say is that common sense gun safety is among the American people a bipartisan issue. And you all know that. You've been great advocates for it. I would just say keep it up, because when people speak up about who they are, the experiences they've had, the things they care about, what they are hearing from their children and grandchildren, it really can influence Congress. And I know that this group has been working so hard, and so many young people have been really standing up on this, but keep at it, because we're going to make a difference, and we're going to get this done. We just have to keep pushing.
Remember, responsible gun owners have nothing to fear.
Right.
Nothing.
Right.
Couldn't say it better myself. Thank you both so much. And before I let you go, because I know you have votes, I'm going to throw out one little more question to you, and you got 30 seconds each to answer it, because I know you have to go. All right. But I'm aware that you're more than just elected officials. You are parents, and I believe one of you is a grandparent as well. You're human beings where kids are important in your life. What would your advice be to other parents or grandparents to help support the mental health and safety of their kids and grandkids?
Fred, you may have the first vote, so you go.
All right, it hasn't started. I keep looking over my shoulder. We're following up what you did yesterday with Juneteenth to make it a national holiday, which is going to be our last vote. So I am a grandparent. I don't know who you're referring to. I don't know Maggie well, and I got two on the way. So that's really great news in my family. But the advice that I do is this: all of us come from a community that we care about. I was born and raised in the community that I represent. My parents still live across the street. There's no reason why you can't find your member of Congress, Republican or Democrat, and say, we need help. I want you to sit down and listen to my talk. We all go to schools. We all love, I mean, it's something that I've always done. There is no reason why you can't have some personal impact on a member of Congress that represents you. And to talk about, to know the answers, know the charges, oh, it's going to take guns away, whatever they are, but to know that the counter argument to show that that's false, and then to hold that member of Congress accountable to what's going on. Have them explain why they didn't have a vote on this or that. I mean, again, our red flag bill, just to give you one example, Mike Pence was governor of Indiana for all the years when the red flag was in place in the state of Indiana. Mike Pence, probably about the most Second Amendment guy you've ever met. I served with him in the House. He went on to the governorship. It saved thousands of cases that red flag impacted. And that's what we're trying to do. So if it can work in Indiana, it can work anywhere. And you got to know those counter arguments to try and get your member of Congress to say, sign me up.
Fred, that was wonderful. I think I would just add in terms of, I have 2 adult children and I have grand godbabies. So I have as close to grandchildren as I can get right now. But 2 things to parents. One is listen to your kids, encourage them to have relationships with other adults you trust, because sometimes kids go through time periods where they need a different adult in their corner. And it's great if you can facilitate who that adult is, because sometimes your kids are going to talk to that adult and that could save their lives or save the lives of one of their friends, even if you're not available. And I guess the other thing is to really talk to my friends and family members who are gun owners. And again, as Fred said, responsible gun owners have nothing to fear. We're a strong Second Amendment state in New Hampshire. I believe people should have guns if they want to for hunting and for self-defense. But it is really important to understand what, the lethality of that weapon in the hand of an impulsive, sad child or adolescent, or just one that doesn't understand the full, the danger of that weapon. So really, I'd also remind parents, if you are going to keep guns in the home, keep them secure. Make sure that you have honest conversations with your children about them. And make sure, as always, that you listen to your kids, and that if you feel like you are not reaching your child or you can't understand their despair or sadness, get them professional help. It can make all the world of difference, and professionals can help you learn how to support your children too.
Love that. Thank you so much. And I appreciate you both have to go to vote. So if you need to leave, I'm going to focus on Karen and David now. But thank you so much, Senator Hassan and Congressman Upton. Really appreciate you and congratulate you on being Sandy Hook Promise Champions as well.
Thank you so much for the honor. I really appreciate it. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Karen and David, don't you go anywhere. You're still here. So Karen, we just heard Senator Hassan talk about what the federal government can do to better address the needs and support school personnel and their students during this transition to this post-pandemic world. What, in your opinion, can they do to help?
Well, thank you for the question. I really think that a lot has to do with sustainability. I think that the possibly restructuring of the ESSER funds that SEAs are receiving to pass down through to the districts need to be looked at in a different way to allow for sustainability, so that we can focus on hiring qualified mental health professionals that know that they're going to be there, so that they can create a plan to help support our children, because we don't know the long-term effects. And so having funding for 1 or 2 years, I think 2024, may not be the best method. It is to definitely look at allowing those funds to be used in a way that they can spread them over time, so that they can hire people and come up with a plan, have the time to come up with a plan to support our children, and one of sustainability, so that we can recruit and retain the bright and the best in mental health.
That's really well said, Karen. Thank you. And just thinking about that, a story that really profoundly illustrates that need for mental health plans and support is, in January, we saw the 5th largest school district in the country begin a phased-in reopening because they had a 50% increase in students dying by suicide. 50% increase in students dying by suicide. I mean, my heart breaks just even thinking about that. David, what do you think schools need in addition to the plans, what do they need to help support students' mental health in these unprecedented times?
Well, Nicole, thank you again for the question. And, you know, I can certainly relate to the sentiments in that question. Here in Stark County, Ohio, we had a suicide contagion back in 2017, where we had 12 students that committed suicide in an 8-month period. And that was 7 times the national rate and 11 times the rate of suicides that we had before. One of those students committed suicide in our middle school. And he did that even though his intent was to go in and to actually attack a couple of teachers. And so it rings true to me that we have to address this problem. And I'm more of a doer. And so I instead of addressing what they need, I'd rather address what they need to do. And one of the big things I think schools need to do is to get with all the other stakeholders and create a coordinated and integrated approach to preventing these types of situations. And that's, you know, from the school district to law enforcement and mental health systems. The districts need to emphasize, you know, a connectedness with their kids, so that the kids understand that there's somebody on the staff that's trusted, that they can go to with their problems and have a relationship with, and those adults would be able to direct them to the proper resources if necessary. But, you know, before I came on board here, I was an FBI agent for 22 years. And so spent a lot of time looking at intelligence. I think intelligence is so important for us in schools. And so we need to be able to identify who those at-risk students are early, so that we can be proactive as opposed to reactive. And obviously the Sandy Hook Promise tip line is so important. You know, I work with those guys and the counselors all the time. They're such great people. I'm amazed at the way that they can extract information. And so having schools use that resource and to identify those kids in advance and then coordinate with law enforcement, so that every time that we have somebody that is an at-risk student, every time the teachers act on it, law enforcement acts on it, and mental health systems act on it to go out and provide support to those kids. It's so important.
I totally agree. And there is so much more that can be done. And I love how you mentioned how the programs can help. And I'm just wondering, in the same way that our members of Congress, you know, switched from what they do as elected officials to what advice they would give to parents, I'm wondering, what advice would either of you, and David, I'll come to you first, what would you tell other school leaders about violence prevention programs and Sandy Hook Promise within that, and the ability to impact their school environment?
Well, there's no doubt that it can impact school violence. Again, as I mentioned, we had this huge contagion here. Since that time, we've gone 3 years and we've only had two suicides. Now, 2 is too many, but certainly, you know, compared to those 8 months, it's such a better situation. And by using the connectedness models that we have in our schools and the intelligence that's driven from the tip line, without a doubt, over the last 2 years since I've been here working in this position, there's been at least 5 or 10 students that we've gotten in front of and stopped from a suicide attempt. There's no doubt in my mind. And one for sure was going to be an active shooter at a school. And we've been able to prevent that from happening because we were able to get out in front, and because of the efforts of all of those stakeholders to come together. And it's not working across party lines, but it's dropping some of the egos that law enforcement has and some of the egos that we have in the education sector as well, and just work together, because, you know, these kids are our cherished gifts, right? And anything that we can do, we should be doing, and it can be done, and we can make a huge difference if we put some of these things into place.
Love that. And Karen, I mean, you're working on implementing Sandy Hook Promise violence prevention programs across an entire state with us. Is there any special advice that you would give to other state leaders or school leaders about the ability to impact the school environment?
Yes, so definitely what I would like to say is that this is a community effort. This is something that schools need to look beyond their four walls and bring in those partners, those law enforcement, local law enforcement, EMS, all of the people, and truly sit down together and understand that our children, they're worth it. They're worth making that extra effort. And we have seen in the last year how children who have come to school for rest or to have a better situation have had to endure being a year in a place that sometimes is not best for them. And so definitely helping our educators understand that all children are not coming from the best environment, and that the mental health is so important, but they are relieved, if you will, to come back to the physical school. And so we as adults in this world need to help them with that transition and help be there as a support to them. And I think that if anything I'm trying to do in North Carolina, I am trying to bring everybody to the table as much as possible. Legislators, law enforcement. We started a great collaboration with the North Carolina SBI, but we want to do it in a way that to let the young people know that law enforcement is there to be of a support. And so we have to have those conversations. I think that once we have those, and once we allow the children to see that the adults work well together, then we can help support them.
Love it. Karen, David, you are amazing partners to work with. It's been so wonderful to hear your voices. I wish we had more time to talk even more and share some of the insights and learnings, but thank you so much for all that you do to protect the kids in your areas and that's spreading out across the country. So thank you again. Appreciate you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So this, we're coming into the home stretch here, folks. Thank you so much to everyone for being with us. It was a wonderful, wonderful virtual event. So much for the Kraft macaroni and cheese right out of the pot in your pajamas. Next year, next June, save this in your calendar. Make sure you save the whole month until we get you the date, that you will be with us in a beautiful fancy hall right in Washington, D.C. with really good food and a very special event, to be sure, as we return to doing this live. So I just want to thank all of the participants tonight. I thank you to Sandy Hook Promise, the folks behind the scenes who do this work and who do the work all year long and make this organization what it is, and who also put this event together and all the technical stuff and planning that made this come together so beautifully. Thank you to all of you for a great job. Thank you to all of our sponsors to making this possible, to making it happen. Thank you to our wonderful Connecticut delegation who have been through thick and thin with us right from the beginning. We look forward to continuing that wonderful partnership. Thank you to our honorees, Senator Hassan and Congressman Upton. Your leadership and partnership is amazing, and we look forward to continuing to save lives and work with you. And to our education partners, Karen Fairley and David Morgan, thank you for all your good work and partnership there as well. And the amazing Youth Advisory Board, where unfortunately Ariana Gross was unable to join due to a technical difficulty, but Drew Lanzaw, thank you for representing what is such an incredible force to be reckoned with. I will tell you that attending the Youth Advisory Save Summit in every year is just incredible. It's just absolutely incredible to watch the engagement and just how smart and how effective these young people are, and it gives you such hope for the future. I brought my daughter Natalie to one or two. She wants to come back. She wants to go back again. The last time she brought friends. We drove friends of hers down from Connecticut down to North Carolina so they could attend the Save Summit. It's just an amazing event, and it's with honor and gratitude that I thank you all for being part of this tonight. And we'd like to close and share a video from the Save Summit so you get a little flavor of what it looks like. And thank you for continuing to support this organization and the work that we do. Thank you for saving lives with us in honor of those lost and to save lives in the future. And we'll see you in person in June. And enjoy this video. And thanks again.
School shootings.
Violence.
Loneliness.
Hate.
Suicide.
As one student,
you might not know what you can do.
Here's what you can do.
Start or join a Safe Promise Club.
Students Against Violence Everywhere, Save Promise Clubs, are kindergarten through 12th grade school and community-based organizations.
Led by students for students, encouraging young people to take charge of keeping their friends, schools, and communities safe.
By engaging a diverse group of students to prevent violence and create safe communities.
We lead student-driven activities that educate and empower our classmates,
so we can build socially inclusive student communities and be upstanders.
Save Promise Club started in 1989 when 17-year-old Alex Orange of West Charlotte High School lost his life to gun violence while trying to protect his friends.
His friends formed Students Against Violence Everywhere, SAVE, and made a promise to prevent violence before it happens.
And not to lose another friend to violence.
We educate our schools and communities about Sandy Hook Promise's Start With Hello and Say Something programs. We organize the Start With Hello week in September and a Say Something week in March, and work to make these programs a part of our school's culture.
We engage the school community with special national events like the Save Summit, Save Day, and National Youth Violence Prevention Week.
We encourage. Save Promise Clubs encourage mental wellness, self-care, and healthy relationships.
Save Promise Clubs are the most important club you'll ever join. We create unity and are like a family. We give each other a sense of belonging to something, and that's powerful.
Today, there are thousands of Save Promise Clubs across the country, empowering youth and helping to create safer schools and communities.
So if you only join one club this year,
make it a Safe Promise Club.
It could be
the most important club
you'll ever join.